But before we do, we have very big news. This week, the Han Mother called together all the ministers of Korea. Okay, of course, who betrayed father and are there for money. Called them all to the Cheonjeong Palace to give them a speech. To basically what she's doing, she's beta testing a speech. Okay, she's beta testing what she wants to talk about on November. What is it? 12th? They're doing some event. 11th, November 11th or something. So they're planning to do like a big rally, and so of course these are the henchmen on the ground that have to promote this heretical theology, right? So she is beta testing it on them, and it's just so it's sick. It's sick. It's very sick. So Yoo Kyung-suk, the idiot, who is the Korean 협회장, okay, the Korean president right now, he's a complete swindler, fraudster, etc. Total fraudster. And he's really a commie. I mean, politically, he's a commie. All right? And so he comes up there before the Han Mother comes out, and he says, all of you, we have wonderful fat envelopes prepared for all of you. What that means in Asia, right? The fat envelopes mean money, cash, okay? Right? And so the Han Mother comes out, and then...
예수님께서는 십자가에 돌아가시며 다시 오마 하셨어요. 분명 오셔서는 어린 양 잔치를 한다고 하셨어요.
Okay. So she's saying that Jesus was to come back and do the marriage of the supper of the Lamb, okay?
그렇다면 기독교 2000년 역사는 다시 오마한 예수님을 위한 준비를 해야 돼요.
So she's saying here that Christian history was for the preparation of Jesus.
그 준비의 첫째 조건은 독생녀를 찾아야 되고
Okay. The first condition what was that? Go ahead.
독생녀를 찾아야 되고
is to find the only begotten daughter.
독생녀를 탄생시켜야 하는 것입니다.
And the only begotten daughter has to be born.
독생자가 아니에요.
It is not the only begotten son.
독생녀예요.
Which is the first condition. Okay. That's not the more thing. Okay.
독생녀가 지상에 탄생하게 되면 독생자는 있게 마련이에요. 알겠어요.
So if the only begotten daughter is born on earth, then the only begotten son is manifested.
Do you understand?
Whoa, that doesn't even make timeline sense, man. She's born after. She's born way after. I mean, so this is how insane, okay, this type of thing is. But now people get to see what she actually believes and why we had to stand against her. Because she's completely fallen to Satanism.
그렇기 때문에 한 민족을 선한 민족으로 길러 나오시면서 마지막에 기독교 배경 가운데 독생녀를 찾으셔야 돼요.
Okay, so they have to raise up the Korean peoples and Christian civilization, and the fruit of that is the only begotten daughter. Okay, so she says she's been keeping it inside, enduring, that's the word, for 50 years, and not speaking out about this.
하나님 아버지를 회원 드릴 수 있는 사람은 나밖에 없다라고 생각했어요.
I am the only one that can liberate
가정연합도
God.
마찬가지예요. 그동안 저녁이었어요.
Family fed is the same. And what is that?
그동안 저녁이었어요.
Oh, it was the nighttime.
그러니 이제 독생녀 참 어머니 시대에 있어서는 아침을 맞이해야 돼요.
But now
알겠어요.
the age of the only begotten daughter is the bright morning.
그러니 진실을 밝혀야 돼요.
I have to tell this truth to the world.
어머니가 자식을 낳지 아버지가 낳나요? 참 어머니 부모로
Hold on, that's too fast. So she's saying, only the mother bears the children, not the father. Completely insane, flipped around. I mean, this is why they can't teach DP, because they're teaching antithesis to the divine principle. Okay. But she made every plot. And news in from the intel sources inside, so some people are leaking this out, obviously, to us. But is that only 20%? Was it only 20% of the women? Was it women? 20% of the women were applauding. So even people in that ministerial, traitorous class, they too are saying, holy shish kebab, how are we going to explain this? How the heck are we going to explain this? Okay. Anyways, just so absurd. But again, expected, not surprising. Again, we see the harlot of Babylon theology and the heretical theology and the God-denying theology and self-worship, again, continue from that family front. And of course, even the people in there know that this is wrong.
내가 밝히지만 아버님은 독생자 틀림없어요. 그러나 나를 만날 때까지는 기다려야 돼요. 알겠어요?
Okay, so she does say that Father is the only begotten Son, but that until he meets her, he has to wait. He has to wait until he meets her. Oh no. There's a whole section also where she's talking about I'm different from all of you. I'm born without sin, and so that kind of thing, right? So you can see the nature of the heresy coming out further and further, more and more. And of course, as she's beta testing this on the leaders, and of course, in preparation for the November 11th speech they're going to do. What is it like? They're trying to gather what 10,000 people or something like that? 70,000? Where are they trying to gather that? The World Cup Stadium. I mean, they're just wasting so much money. I'll tell you that much. Oh my gosh, with these bigger and bigger, just ridiculous festivals. And everybody's like, what the hell is going on? Because everything they've been told, they all know it's a lie, but they're staying there because they think they can hang on to some vestige of money. When of course it's now evaporating. Oh, no. There's a big part of that speech. And she said, the reason why North Korea and East Asia is so unstable is because of Japan. Okay? It's because of Japan. And it was because of the Japanese members, you see. So you better send more money to Chungpyeong. Oh, it's so funny. She said this in Japan. That was in Japan. Okay, she said that when she was in Japan. So she said it to them. Okay, but you can see how fast it's imploding. The fact that they got her to go to Japan, and I know they're around her saying, "Oh, mother, we don't have any more donations coming from Japan. We need to hurry up, and if you just say one word, they'll give everything." I know that's happening probably around her. Okay. And then she is so foolish, she actually believes that crap. And then she goes there and then reveals herself. And then, of course, she will throw that theology on them again. So again, she'll expose herself again to the heresy and the heretic that she has become. The heretic and destroyer, as Father predicted. So it's sad, but that's what happens. That's what happens to thieves and heretics and those who want to worship themselves. That's what happens. So a lot of things in Revelation don't necessarily happen in chronological order. Many times they're happening at the same time. They're happening at the same time, but just the author is just revealing it through pen and paper, so it has to come out like chronological. But a lot of these episodes in the book of Revelation are happening simultaneously. All right, so let's go into Revelation 15 today, which is a little shorter, and let's go to Revelation 16. That's it right there. All right, and let's look at this. Let's read together. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels, having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest. And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. And the 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles. And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials, full of the wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled. Okay, let's move to Revelation 16. We'll come back to all of this, okay? But let's move it together. Now we go to Revelation 16. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, "Go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth." And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. And the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of water, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the waters say, "Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and wast, and shall be, because thou hast judged us. For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy." And I heard another out of the altar say, "Even so, Lord God Almighty, true and righteous are thy judgments." And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and the power was given unto him to torch men with fire. And men were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues. And they repented not to give him glory. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness. And they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirit of devils, working miracles which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth, and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven, from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into the three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail. For the plague thereof was exceedingly great. Now, let's go in a little more detail, but let's keep context, okay? Because we're living on time now, and that was just breaking this weekend. Okay, this morning this broke, but North Korea is now conducting mass evacuation drills as threat of war heightens. This is like the first. This is happening. North Korea has been conducting rare mass evacuation and blackout drills throughout this country in preparation for war. It emerged this weekend. This was published, what is it, October 29th? What is it today? October 29th, this morning. What? Is that yesterday? That's today. That's what I thought. That's today. This is this morning. I have never heard of this type of training exercise before in North Korea, but I'm not surprised. Chun Im-bum, a recently retired South Korean 3-star lieutenant general, told NK News. They must realize how serious this situation is. So this is unprecedented that they're now starting evacuation drills in North Korea. At the UN General Assembly in September, Mr. Trump threatened to totally destroy North Korea if provoked, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so we are on a serious collision course with the North, and of course, the leftist lunatics and the world level commies and the UN. They love it. They love it because this is something they've been preparing, and it is the trope. It is the trope to suck everybody into world war and a world level conflict, because their whole system of lies and deception is crumbling. I mean, do you know, like most people even in the U.S. now don't believe the government narratives coming out of CNN, etc. Don't believe even what the government says about 9/11. So many people are waking up, even about 9/11, different things that used to be considered just conspiracy theory. People are waking up. The JFK files have been released completely, and of course, you see this huge rebellion, right? The JFK files have been released, damning evidence coming out. But it's all coming out, pointing to Lyndon B. Johnson as the killer, as the one who was organizing to kill, Kennedy. And of course, the whole issue with the multiple shooters, all that kind of thing, starting to come out. Of course, the people who've been speculating on this and talking about this for the last 50 years, like Roger Stone, et cetera, they've been talking about this the whole time. Okay, but now you have extremely damning evidence that's now coming out. JFK files. Trump is delivering. He's starting to declassify all these secret files. That's very important. Okay, now and at the same time, there's a rebellion because you can see they were supposed to release all the papers, but then the deep state stopped like 300. What is it? 300 pages? 3,000. I'm sorry, 3,000 files. They stopped like 3,000 files from coming out. And of course, those are probably, they're going to appear blacked out, and, whoops, they all have black lines for them. Whoopsie daisy, that's how they were. That's what they're going to say. But of course, just so condemning, it just really shows the nature of the deep state. They're going against the president. But everybody knows that JFK was trying to mess around with the Fed, and he was trying to get rid of the Fed. And of course, that's why the big banks and the oil bankers all said, hey, cut this guy out, kill him, get rid of him. So we know the backstories behind that. People have been talking about this. Experts on the inside have been talking about this for decades, okay? But now there's confirmation with the papers that are coming out. So it's absolutely humongous. It's an incredible time to be alive because, look, you could have gone your whole life and not seen this. You could have easily gone your whole life and not seen this, right? Because this implicates George Herbert Walker Bush. Whoa, you see that? He was down there in Texas. He was there in Texas on the day, right? And as more and more comes out, he was not only there, he gets his promotion right after the assassination. Boom, he's the head of the CIA, and boom, his whole CIA network group starts coming in and taking over from the 90s, and just that's where you hear this whole New World Order talk that's coming from the Bushes. They're the ones using the term New World Order, even though they try to make that sound like some kind of conspiracy theorist and stuff like that. They're the ones who used the dang term New World Order on multiple occasions. You're talking about, the Prime Minister of Britain, all these elites talking about New World Order, New World Order, New World Order. It was one of their stupid talking points at their consensus gatherings that they did at Bilderberg Group and the Davos Group, etc. Okay? But these people were saying New World Order. That's why the people who were criticizing that were saying New World Order. The people who were criticizing didn't make it up. They were going off a term they themselves were using. Trump is delivering. He's starting to declassify. And Kuchtin was talking about this on Freedom Society on Thursday, that Trump needs to continue to declassify the different secret operations, the black ops, the CIA funding, and the running the drugs, all that stuff. He has to start letting it go. Declassifying. 9/11, he has to start declassifying. The first bombing of the World Trade Center, he's got to start declassifying that stuff. And then he doesn't have to decide what to do with these people or with the CIA or FBI. Trump has to just declassify and say, hey, American people, what should we do? Let's take a look at this. I'll let all of you guys take a look at these declassified files, black operation, assassination files, all this stuff. What should we do? Your own FBI and CIA, your own intelligence agencies have been doing this. What should we do? I'll let you decide. That's what he should do. That was the executive order to basically, start auditing the Fed and start separating from the Fed, which is not a federal body, it is a private bank. And he was going after those guys and after those controllers because he, on the inside, Kennedy had all these different problems and sexual issues and all this kind of thing. And that's one way they tried to control him. But in the end, he had a conscience, he had morals, and he was like, hey, I don't want the American people being ruled by these nefarious forces. And he was whacked. He was whacked. Remember that documentary we saw about Kennedy and the trajectory of the bullet that went in his head? The government institute is saying that it went through him, through his brain, turned around in his head, and came out the other way. What the heck are you talking about? Can you believe that? They were saying that in the report. It's outrageous how stupid they think you are. Mingle with fire. Now this is interesting. There's a whole scene in Revelation 15 about the spirit world. There's this whole scene in this Revelation 15. Look at this. Sea of glass, mingled with fire, them that have gotten the victory over the beast, over his image, over his mark, over his number and his name, standing on the sea of glass, having the harps of God, singing this song, etc. Right? And then you have the angels coming out of the temple. But this temple, of course, is a testimony in heaven. Here we go. Temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was open, etc. So this is an incredible celestial scene. The scene of the spirit world. Now it's interesting, I wanted to know a little bit deeper about the sea of glass. So I did a little wonderful word study here. Hualinos, and look at this. In Scripture, transparency is a greatly valued virtue, representing the Lord's glory shining through, reflecting himself. Reflecting himself. For example, the glassy sea surrounded the throne of God in heaven. Revelation 4:6-15:2 is apparently what reflects the Lord himself, as reflected by his saints. By God's light, their sanctification, glorification has a spiritual transparency that reflects the image of Jesus himself. So you see this? This is not where we are self-glorifying ourselves. This is not where we're self-sanctifying ourselves. It is the work of God through us, through the saints, right? In the last days, that is doing this, that is sanctifying and glorifying. Okay? And look at it, and of course that's all tied to the mark of the Father on their foreheads and the crowns. Let no man take thy crown, Revelation 3, right? It is that crown, not the physical crown, right? Because that's just gold or that's just whatever it's made out of. But it's the gift from God that is substantiated, that is represented by the crown, the sovereignty, etc. Then, of course, that sanctifies us into Christ, sanctifies us, glorifies us. We're humble people. We don't want to, have dominion over, the world in an evil way. We don't want to oppress people. We don't want to rule like past dictators, etc. We don't want to do that. Humble people, we're humble people of God. We don't want to do that. We just want people to be able to have freedom, responsibility, and have sovereignty. We want people to be able to relate with God. Right? We want people to have the ability to seek God. And you can only do that if there's a place of freedom. Because if you don't have that ability to choose, then you can't really choose to love God. Because you can't love somebody without real choosing. It has to be a freely given over, free submission to somebody's love for you to love them. So God is patient, and of course, even though we disagree with a lot of people in the U.S. and different, agendas and things like that, still we agree that people must be able to be free, and they must be able to divine themselves, seek God, and have their conscience. Even though we can speak out against their actions, we can speak out against their actions. We can say that's wrong and that's sinful. We can say, we repented. You should repent to repent. The kingdom is at hand. We can say that. That's expressing our belief, right? But at the same time, we don't want to get state power to rule that over people so that they're forced to do that, because then it becomes like Sharia law. And we don't want to put like death penalties on people who are, struggling. In Islam, you leave Islam, you're dead. Any Muslim can kill you legally. Okay? So obviously that is not the Christian culture. That's not the JC culture, Jesus Christ culture. That's not the kingdom of Christ. There is a larger ethic, ethos, civilization. And again, we have to get back to narrative. Story. The story of the history, God's story, his story throughout time. The understanding of history and our connection to our past is absolutely critical. This is why every Marxist revolution and every socialist commie revolution is trying to uproot your past. First thing they did was try to destroy any ties that people have to the past. Why? So they can give you a new history, a new identity, which they themselves have created, which you are the slaves. But you're meant to think that identity is good. So there's this incredible glassy sea in the spirit world. This is a sea of glass, where all those who stood up against the mark, the image, etc. Now it's very interesting. These different things that represent Satan's power. You can see even the frogs in Revelation 16 is coming out like the false prophet. All of these are tied together. You know, these large multinational groups, cartels, crime syndicates, cabals, you name it. You just put whatever name you want to put on it. Massive, politically Satanist, disparate organizations that have the same purpose. They're actually different organizations, just like the four horsemen are different horses. But they operate and pursue the same civilization. Radical Sharia Islam, the green horse, Red Commie China, who organ harvests 1.6 billion people and oppresses 1.6 billion people. Does like how many organ harvests per year? You can order a liver and a heart in 4 days. That means that's a fresh kill. Okay? So you're talking about the red horse commies in China who are, just trying to take over East Asia. You got the black horse, the black ops with the scales of justice, pretending they're scales of justice, waving the scales of justice. Meanwhile, they're killing the scales of justice. Meanwhile, they're doing subterfuge, running the drug trade, doing assassination attempts all over. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, you have the white horse, which is Satan knows that the true Christ will be riding on the white horse. So he sends the Antichrist on the white horse with the crown and the bow, or the arrows. And of course, that is exactly the crest of the big bankers and the Rothschild groups, etc. That's actually their actual crest. And of course, that's connected with the false prophet, who also is with the white horseman, which of course poses as a Christian, poses as somebody who loves Jesus, but then colludes with all these evil forces. And of course, there's a Pope. He's the false prophet. He's the most powerful religious figure in the world. And he's completely allied with these cartels, 100% allied. In this ridiculous, pathetic, pontifical study of sciences or whatever, that organization just reported this week, he's inviting Jerry Brown from California, the guy who allowed HIV to be put in the bloodstream, right? Okay, the same crazy man. He's invited Jerry Brown to talk at the Pontifical Science Studies Center, whatever it is called. Pontifical something, right? Because they say that the largest problem, the danger that Europe is facing is global warming. No problem, no. The biggest problem is you because you drive a car, and it's you because you are creating greenhouse emissions and you should have carbon taxes on you. You are actually more dangerous than Kim Jong-un because you drive to work. You are more dangerous, okay? You are more deadly than Jerry Brown, who's putting HIV into the blood supply for your safety and health, of course, for your long and wonderful life, ridden with venereal disease and STDs. Isn't it interesting that, of course, it's interesting that Facebook changes its whole thing to exactly the number of the 63206. Wasn't that incredible? They didn't do that by mistake, by the way. Isn't it interesting that also they're the number one social media organization, company, monopoly in the world? Isn't that interesting? It's allied with Google, who's actual, what is that? Their logo for the Chrome is like 6 this way, and a 6 this way. There's, you look at the Chrome thing on your handphone. You see that little thing? There's a little circle with a 6 here, and then a 6 this way, and then a 6 this way. If you look at it, there's 666 right on it. And of course, that happens to be the largest monopoly in the world, the largest internet provider in the world. Isn't that interesting? By God's light, their sanctification, glorification. Now, these are the people who overcome. These are the people who overcome the mark, the image, the beast, the organization. We know the beast is not an actual beast, okay? We all know that. There's not one Christian theologian who believes the beast is an actual monster that comes out of the sea and of the earth, and he has different heads and body of a leopard and a bear claws and then a head of a mouth of a lion. Nobody believes that. Everybody knows these are international supra-organizations that are combines and collectives of the same predatory elite class that is then trying to make world government, which they've essentially already done, and especially with the whole internet and the algorithms that can put onto it, controlling what's trending, controlling what you see, controlling everything, making it harder for you to actually find conservative voices or sovereignty-based voices. Makes it harder and harder. But they do it subtly with numbers and algorithms to send you material that is only leftist bias and censor other voices that are like even Joy Villa was censored. Even well, who's the two black sisters that are on the Trump sisters? Diamond and Silk. They were censored too by YouTube and the racist YouTube and racist Google. Meanwhile, they say the most dangerous thing now is the white male and the white Christian male is the most dangerous thing now on the earth. And yes, and now there's a new Halloween costume, new Halloween costume of the white dangerous Christian male. Yes, there's a new Halloween costume where you can dress up as a white male. You are least likely to be killed by a white male Christian. Least likely to be killed. They are actually the safest group. They are not the group that is most dangerous. You kidding me? Oh. They said he was a Russian agent. Now it's been coming out by Mueller himself that Hillary was the Russian agent. She was the one with the Uranium One deal. 20% of our uranium was sold to Russia thanks to Hillary Rodham Clinton. While she was in the State Department. Mueller had connections to Russia. Podesta. Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation. Busted. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're saying Trump was a Russian. He was working for Russia. He was giving them, doing Russian deals when they were the ones with the Russians. They were the ones doing the multi-million deals. They're the ones receiving how many millions of dollars to the Hillary Clinton Foundation. And a false dossier. Well, that's the whole thing with the DNC. Now they're in big trouble. They're the ones, the DNC, paying for a false dossier that is coming, trying to show that there's some Trump collusion with Russia, and now it comes out they violated campaign laws. And now they must be under investigation. Even Leon Panetta, the former CIA chief, is saying this needs to be investigated because he sees this boat is sinking. He was an ardent Obamaite. He was under Obama, wasn't he, Leon Panetta, this idiot? And now he's saying this should be investigated. This is great illegal activity. So it's all coming out. It's all coming out at record speed. You think about it in the last 3 years. If you even talked about this, you would be considered crazy. Think about that, right? In the last 3 years, if you even brought this up, people would literally shut down and say, "I'm never talking to you again. You're in a cult." I mean, that's what they would do. But now the New York Times is forced to report about it. Newsweek is forced to report about it. New York Post is forced to report about it. Washington Compost is forced to report about it. They have to tell it because it's gone out and it's true. There is no Russian collusion with Trump. It is the Hillary that did it. Hillary is a colluder with Russia. She's the one involved in the P-gate with the DNC, saying that Trump hired prostitutes to pee on Obama's bed. Just ridiculous. They were blaming Trump for everything they were doing. And it's all coming out. The pedophile networks are collapsing. Hollywood is exploding. I mean, this is huge because you understand what holds all these criminal, political, Satanist organizations together is the sexual deviance, is the sexual pedophilia, the criminality, the predatory nature, etc. That's what holds it together. They have to get you into the club by you doing evil so they can blackmail you if you ever try to get around them and expose them. That's how it's tied all together. And the fact that Hollywood is tied to Washington, D.C. Hollywood is tied to London. Hollywood is tied to the Europe pedophile organization. Hollywood is tied to the Saudi Arabian, the Chinese trafficking, the Southeast Asian trafficking. It's all connected. They're all held together by the sexual ethics. Why? Because civilization is held together by sexual ethics. Now, Satan's kingdom, too, is held together by sexual ethics. That's why you'll have these disparate groups who are radically different in their theology, believe totally different cosmological universes and metaphysics, but they'll ally together to do the same goal because they're trying to create the same kingdom of hell on earth where you are a slave and your daughters can be sledded out to them. And that's why even though there are different religions, different organizations, different pagan traditions, they all are one. They're one. You know how like they love to say in the multiculturalism, we're all one religion going up the same mountain. Remember that? You know that? We're all different paths going. No, that's Satanism. All Satanisms lead to one. Yeah, that's true. But to God, there's only one way, one truth, and one life. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And that is Jesus Christ. It is Jesus. It's the JC civilization. Okay, and that's what Chinese Constitution is all about. It's about the JC civilization. Because there's a substantiation of God's kingdom codified when God returns. We become spiritually transparent. The light of God shines through us. It's not that it's our own light. Satan wants you to believe that it's your own light. No, it's not. I'm disappearing. I'm becoming invisible. And God's light is shining through me. It's not my light. It's God's light. That is a light to the world, right? We are supposed to be like the lighthouse on the hill with the light. But it's not our light. That's the problem. Mainstream media, athletic organizations, whatever want to make you believe it's your light, it's your dream, it's you. You are Hollywood. You are glorious. You are you are God. You are wonderful. No, you're a sinner. And every one of us knows your sin because we had it too before we gave our life to Christ and He cleansed us. We have it too. We know where you're at. You see what I'm saying? So it's God's light flowing through us, and on the glassy sea of those who overcame the image, overcame the beast, overcame the different things, is God's light that shines through. And then that reflects through us emptying ourselves into the world. This reflects the glory He invested in them as transformed, transparent saints. So yes, we become saints in the last time. We become saints not in the way the Catholic Church calls saints. We are saints because we are standing under God's authority. Doesn't mean we're flawless. Doesn't mean we don't fight sometimes. It doesn't mean, Lawrence and Jamal, they fight. They're saints. They're saints. Not like the saints we think, but they're still under God's authority. Whether you love or hate them, doesn't matter. They're still under God's authority. So this reflects the glory He invested in them as transformed, transparent saints. In this way, the Lord gets all the glory. Wow. In that way, God, substantiated His kingdom, gets all the glory. We just have to do our 5% of staying transparent. And not filling ourselves with ourselves, trying to worship ourselves, and then blocking the light of God coming through us, and then becoming a satanic light, which is not really a light. It's just a fake dark light, which is posing as a bright light, which then sucks you up into evil. The Lord gets all the glory, and believers have the incredible privilege of sharing and reflecting it. So God, in the end, by standing with God at the throne, we are reflecting God's glory, and we are sharing in the sanctification, glorification process, even though, we're humble people. We don't want to be glorified. But just by standing there, God glorifies us. Who shall not fear Thee, O Lord, and glorify Thy name? Who shall not fear Thee? It's interesting because this is amazing. This is a time throughout all this fighting, this huge battle between sovereignty-based, versus worldwide communism. Even on the macrocosmic level, look, Stefan Molyneux, one of the biggest philosophers, probably the biggest philosopher on the internet, YouTube. He's an open atheist, but he lauds, that means praises. He praises Christian civilization. He praises it, even though he's an atheist. Go figure that. And he says, I'm still contemplating about God, whatever. Okay. But he's one of the top philosophers on the internet. The Protestant Christian ethic. And this is what's interesting about the Protestant ethic. It's not a centralized church like the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is a centralized church, right? They have charge over all ministries that are Catholic. They have charge over them. Whereas Protestant church, it's quite often, what are there, 44,000 different Protestant, I think it's 43,000. The latest count may be 44,000. But about 43,000 plus Protestant churches. But, they say that and, to pretend they're all different religions. They're not. They have the same core. They have the same core beliefs. Now, they disagree on some of the systematic theology or some of the ways in which God glorifies or sanctifies the saints, things like that. But the main crux of it, okay, Jesus Christ died for your sin, rose from the dead. They all believe it, every single one of them. So they're not really 43,000 different. They're like a big family with many different, but they all hold core to God the Father. They all have the same Father. Okay? So you see this tremendous vision and activity in the spirit world, of course, which many of us have not only sensed, but we've experienced different revelation, signs, meeting, pouring out of the Holy Ghost, gifts of the Holy Spirit, you name it, especially at this time where it's so intense, spiritual activity is so high, and the ancestor liberation coming up, it's so high, it's so high, so high. And you see then the angels coming out of the tabernacle, and they're holding what? They're holding the vials. The vials of the wrath of God. Okay, and then Revelation 16, we get into the vials. So look at these vials. The first went and poured out the vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast. And upon them which worship the beast in the second, and worship the beast. So the vials begin. And the vials, when they begin, they are extremely destructive. Extremely full. The cup is full of God's wrath and full of suffering. But it's interesting, even though amidst that, look at how these demons quit. They still blaspheme God. Even though they're being destroyed, they still curse God. And they have shed the blood of the saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. Look what has happened on the microcosm life with these family frauders. They thought they can get away with it. They thought they can get away with it by betraying Father. But in the end, they have to drink the blood of Satan and judgment. Because that's what this blood of Satan is. It's condemnation, eternal separation with God. In the end, you have to drink from that cup. It's the blood. And the fourth angel poured out the sun. The power was given unto the angel to scorch men with fire. You see complete devastation. And isn't it interesting that it's all concentrated right now, in this context, temporally, right now, on North Korea, the center, the epicenter, where Father was locating the building of Cheongguk culture, the beginning of Cheongguk as the Adam nation, the Father nation. And of course, if we go to war, you understand that's tactical nuclear war with the North. You understand that, right? We're not going to get this over with conventional war. 100,000 artillery fire within the first hour in Seoul, Korea. If you even bomb them, or if you try to touch them, whatever, within an hour, they'll be shooting Seoul up like Swiss cheese with huge artillery guns that they've hidden in the mountains, which you cannot find. And the U.S. doesn't know exactly all the posts of all those things. So they literally have to blow up the whole DMZ with tactical nukes. You're talking about 20 to 40 tactical nukes that is basically explode the whole region right around the DMZ, which has all those mountains where all this ridiculous artillery is hidden on the ground and is in these caves. They're going to blow up the whole mountains. It's the only way to stop that raining down fire and brimstone hell that North Korea can shoot upon Seoul. And we know they have the technology to do it because artillery is not that high technology compared to the hydrogen bomb that they just exploded 1 month ago. Men were scorched with great heat and blasphemed the name of God. Look at that. Great heat and blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues. So even though they're being burned up, even though they're being hit with the fire, even though they're being hit with the swords and the noisome sounds, they're still cursing God. They're still cursing Christianity. They're still cursing Christ. They're still cursing Christian civilization. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates. The waters thereof dried up. The way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Ooh, that's interesting. The kings of the east are being prepared. Isn't that interesting? We thank God for our Japanese sanctuary brothers and sisters, and of course the Korean sanctuary brothers and sisters who stood up so hard fighting for sovereignty in there. They fought their hearts out, but of course Korea was so cursed that they got the commie president. But Japan and sanctuary in Japan fought super hard, and this time around Abe had a massive victory in Japan. We were the only ones on the front line. Literally, we were the organization. Every single one of his events, we were on the front line. I'll show you some of those pictures maybe next week or so. Our people are on the front line right in front of Abe while he's speaking around the country. We were at every single one of his events, every single one. With big signs saying, we love Trump, we love Abe, you name it. There's nobody doing that. But of course, landslide, huge victory in Japan. And of course, now God may position the Japanese sanctuary to be able to influence Abe because we not only helped him get into prime minister position before, but this time to increase the number of representatives he has in Congress or whatever they call the parliament there, the Diet, now over 2/3, which means they can change the Constitution and they can probably start initiating strong Japan, strong America alliance system and change their Constitution to reflect more sovereignty-based, bringing the different human rights, including the right to bear arms, down to their citizens, which then, of course, will secure from the tyrannical governments from taking over. They thought we were crazy. You know, Japanese culture, Asian culture, it's pretty nuts to have a picture of you with crowns and an AR-15 rifle. In Japan, you cannot access a gun. So the fact that all our sanctuary brothers and sisters, you know, dozens, hundreds of them, wearing a crown, standing in front of the and carrying an AR-15. To make it more real that people can get the crown and the AR-15 guns too. I'm not saying that's guaranteed, but that now the opportunity is there. Huge, 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 huge hole blown into Satan's face, especially in East Asia. So there are kings of the East that are rising up, baby. There are kings of the East that are rising up. Oh, yes, they're coming. And I saw 3 unclean spirits, because, you know, right now it starts with fake crowns, and, you know, a lot of them have Walmart crowns or whatever, some Halloween crowns. And then they have little toy guns. But that is the beginning of a symbological change, a spiritual atmospheric change, which then can be manifested into real law, which then at some point the Japanese people could actually get a hold of weapons like we can do in the U.S. and have the kingly rights of citizenry over the archangel. Whoa, 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 that's a humongous change. The AR and the crown is a massive symbol of the kings of the last days. Wow, 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 wow. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and out of the false prophet. You see that with the globalists and Bilderbergers and the false pope and all this ridiculousness. What are they? They're spirits of devils. Spirits of devils working miracles. It's not an actual frog coming out, but it's the spirit of devils. The spirit of Satan. And you can see it. You can see it from the Chinese. You can see the political elite of the Chinese. The normal Chinese population are just brainwashed, you know, slaves. They're fine people. But the elites, the dragon, the beast, the false prophet, the Catholic Church, you name it, all their explosion coming out, the pedophile, covering up the pedophile nature of the Catholic Church, and Cardinal Pell, the deputy pope, 3-4 decades, sex trafficking over well, it was 300 children, 300 plus kids. And of course, their goddess ideology, and they believe that Mary is sinless, and all this is just totally unbiblical. Although the normal Catholic is so nice and so wonderful, just like the normal Chinese, but they're ruled over by these archangels who are demonic and who want to disarm them and want to put them onto slavery and want to have them to rule on sin on perch on top of them. For they are the spirit of devils working miracles which go forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world. Look at that. It covers the whole world. Blessed is to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Well, we tell you, folks, it's going to get worse. It gets worse before it gets better. 11/4, which is November 4th, they're planning for big things, is what Antifa has been saying. George Soros has just moved $18 billion to his Open Society Foundation. $18 billion. The Prime Minister of Hungary is saying that that creates an existential threat for Hungary and nationwide Western states. But they are continue to blaspheme God. They continue to attack Christianity because they know that is the force, that is the only force on the earth that can existentially eradicate their civilization. Sharia law won't do it. Buddhism won't do it. What other religion? Hinduism won't do it. Only Christianity, only the Protestant ethic, which of course creates the most prosperity and the most prosperous open free societies in the world's history. But when they lose their ethics and get sold out to secularism, then they get overrun by Islam about 50 years later, etc. They get depressed economically because they get taken over by socialism, commies, the Democratic Leftist Party, you name it. It's the same stupid pattern. Great city was divided into three parts. Look at that. The great city, and the cities of the nations fell. There has to be a division at the end. There must be. And you will always see the great three divide. 30% will support the revolution. 30% will be opposed to the revolution. 30% will be too weak and too cowardly and too spineless to say, I don't want to take you to the side. Okay? But it's the 33% that support the 3% that actually fight are the ones that actually win the Revolutionary War in American history. So just because God's side is small doesn't mean they lose. All it takes is 3% of honorable, good, God-fearing people that can destroy and decimate the imperial powers of Satan on this earth. Only 3%. That's it. That's why he said, don't waste energy on one another. We're all under Father's authority. You're all brothers and sisters. Waste energy on the enemy. Use your energy on the enemy. Attack the UN. Attack Hollywood. Attack the Bilderberg Group. Attack Monsanto and Bill Gates vaccinating and poisoning 70,000 poor Indian children. Attack them. Yep. Your voice then becomes amplified, and then you can spread the gospel of the kingdom as you attack Satan. Yes. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail. For the plague thereof was exceedingly great. Look at that. Even at the last vial, they're still cursing God. They become so corrupted and so fallen, so pathetic and so weak. They're nobodies. They are nobodies, and they know they're nobody, which is the reason why they have to try to pretend they're somebody. All right, SOS, come on up. Let's go to Chunsengyang 582. If a global unified world had been formed in which Adam's birthday, look at that, Adam's birthday, Adam's wedding day, and the day of his return were commemorated, the human race that commemorated those days would have been a unified brotherhood of one peoples. That is to say, they would have become a people that lived in one world. If that had happened, all the customs of Adam's life would have been inherited in the history of humanity. And the culture formed at that time would have been inherited eternally. There is a new civilization in town. And Satan's kingdoms will die. All right, let's all rise, folks, and give glory to the one who deserves all the praise. Go ahead, SOS.